This is the Fitzy and Whipper with Kate Ritchie podcast.
We love having this lady in the studio. First of all, she's one of the warmest embraces that you know. Can hug. Maggie Dent can hug.
Love a hug.
But she's also got a brand new podcast out. The Good Enough Dad is available now. Listen to it wherever you get your good podcast from. She made Kate get very emotional the last time she was in the studio. It's the magnificent Maggie Dent. Welcome!
Yay! Maggie, do you know what?
Maggie.
You feel like, to me, everyone's mum. And when you come in here and you give us a hug, it just feels like I'm in a safe space.
Isn't that just gorgeous?
We can talk about anything, you know.
That my own mum was really cold and aloof. Like,
Was she?
Yeah.
Gave you nothing?
How many children in your family?
6.
Did that crush you?
Yeah, but she came from a family of 12
Oh, my
in
God.
Sydney with lots of poverty. All the reasons why she would find it hard to do attachment.
How do you learn to mother then if you have not been mothered yourself?
Well, there's a lot of things you had to do an awful lot of work on, all the stories that I had learnt from that as a childhood. And I didn't realise that it was trauma, Kate. And being able to realise that the stories that I had learnt from that weren't true, that I didn't deserve to be loved, that I was a worthless piece of crap, that, you know, you just got to do what you're told all the time or you'll get hit, all those sorts of things.
What about your father, Maggie?
Yeah, well, he was the good guy. So, which is probably why, you know, I do what I do now. We know that warm, connected relationship, even with an old crusty, you know, in the 50s, my dad, I spent time with him. He was a farmer.
Yeah.
So we'd hang out in the ute, we'd hang around the sheep. I was his little right-hand girl.
Well, actually, just on the ute, can you please tell us the story? You nearly lost your life in a ute, didn't you, with a couple of blokes that you went to school with?
Yeah, I did. God,
What happened?
Well, I was a tomboy and I was obviously, you know, used to driving on the farm from a young age. And I was at boarding school, but I went with a couple of the boys to their farm and they had a few beat-up old cars. And we were just driving around the paddock, but they dared me. You don't dare me. So we had a race, but unfortunately it caught a rock and it flipped. And then it flipped up against a tree and it came back down on my right foot.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Yeah, so, yeah, that was like one of those moments where you think, oh, I'm a sensible girl. I won't make poor decisions.
Maggie Dent.
Welcome to the teenage years, guys.
Can I ask you just on that, Mags? Because that is such a... If I would be just... If I knew my son was about to jump into a car to do that, you would be so upset that this was about to happen. Do you now... I want to ask you this question because I have to look back at and I was quite rogue, rebellious. So when my boys are doing this stuff now, there is an element of me going, Ryan, just relax, take a deep breath. You went through this as well because, you know, your first reaction is stop it. Don't even look at that. Don't even do this. So how do we approach that with our kids knowing what we went through, Maggie?
Oh, look, it's so good you've brought that up because it's one of the reasons our kids aren't as resilient and can't cope with life is that we don't let them fall out of those trees early on. But in the adolescent window, we've got to realise that because of the brain and how it's slowly developing, they're wired to have fun. They're wired to take risks. They're wired to make impulsive, poor choices, particularly boys and some girls. And it's the natural consequence that comes from those things that helps them grow that, I'm going to... Whereas if you tell them, what happens when we tell them not to do something, it has to be counter will. I've got to push you back because you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? So it's one of the trickiest things of being a parent is to allow them those moments, knowing that hopefully they won't, you know, come undone. And I do remember the phone call to my dad, of course, no smartphones then. And I said, Dad, I'm at the hospital. And he said, oh. And I said, I hurt my foot. Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't even want to tell him what I did. I think he thought I fell over at netball.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
But you can't.
It wasn't till he got there that he realised,
that's 3 O's.
And the other thing is, I reckon this is the biggie for you all, is that I want you to be the parent. Your kid says, I want to call mum, I want to call dad. Rather than the opposite, which says, God, don't tell my mum or my dad, right? And that's why we turn up when they muck up going, first thing, are you hurt?
Yeah.
Rather than, what
are you doing?
Yeah.
We go, oh, you're hurt. Okay, we're going to look after your body. And then later on, Mum, I have a chat about the choice you made. But right now, I'm more concerned. Are you hurt?
Okay.
Yep. Can I ask a question? it really took my breath away when I saw a headline that said that in Florida, they were looking to ban social media for kids under the age of 16. And I thought to myself, my God, if I could put money towards anything or make any effort to contribute to that movement to stop it till the age of 16, then I'm 100% behind it. Can you give us some indication of how bad it is?
Yeah, well, the stats just keep getting worse and worse. And I think the other day when, the Meta boss was out there saying, I don't think it contributes. They have evidence.
Oh, of course.
And we also know the earlier you get a smartphone, the more significant your chances of mental health challenges from 18 to 24. We know it's a massive contributor to our girls', terrible sense of self and also their mental health. We've got the evidence. So, it's really difficult.
Why are we not doing something as a nation about this?
No, because the tech companies have got a lot of money. Right? At the end of the day, they actually don't care that they're damaging our kids.
No, of course not.
It's a bit like the cigarette and tobacco companies don't care that vaping hurts our kids. They're about making money out of our kids. And I'm with you. Why aren't we outraged?
There must be some way to stop it.
Why aren't we outraged?
I want to watch what happens in Florida as the template for hopefully what can roll out in other parts of the world.
If it's not the phone in the classroom, it's their device that they're using for their learning, that they're suddenly just watching YouTube videos, but they're not concentrating. And the long-term impact, I think, is you need to be able to concentrate and focus to learn well at any age. And they're noticing that is exactly what's not happening with today's brain. So remember I said 27 is about when the boys' brain, no, they're now thinking boys with excessive gaming, it is closer to 30 that the prefrontal finally finishes because of that, stuff that happens. But it's delaying it.
Because I do know some people who have slightly older children than my daughter, who is 9. So they're in that kind of tween, early teen boys gaming. And what they have said is, and these parents are quite active themselves, they say things to me like, I cannot get my children out of the house. I cannot get that device from them. If I attempt to do that, it is all hell breaks loose in the house. And there's part of me who has not yet reached that stage. I'm thinking, just take the iPad off them.
Yeah.
But apparently it's not that easy. It feels as though there are young teens or boys and girls who are in charge of the household by their mood and addiction to devices. How do you implement change if you're already too far down that track?
You've painted it so accurately, Kate. And, there's a couple of things that we've done along the journey, and I really look to the expert. You've just got to do this thing very gradually. And one of the things that really does improve it is that there's something you get that means you block the Wi-Fi for your own home. So you start with a big conversation that says we're realising it's getting problematic, but we're also using our devices too much.
Yep.
So this family is going to wind back the amount of time, and the amount of time will be, let's be reasonable. Say they're doing 3 hours gaming a night.
Yep.
We're just going to wind it back to 2.5 hours for a couple of weeks.
Yep.
But also you don't get to go gaming till your homework's done. So we're just going to put some slight shifts in, because you try and look at all our best New Year's resolutions. You can't change habits quick. But while you're doing it, you're also stoking your relationships. So you eat more ice cream. You're nicer to them, right? You just do everything.
Their favourite dinner. We're having curried sausages tonight.
Right. Yeah, whatever it is. So in other words, you're doing it from a space of love rather than all the old stuff that says just do it.
Yeah.
Punishment.
Because they're teenagers.
Well, it's a bit like if we had to give up coffee overnight.
Oh, we're not
we
doing
had
that,
to,
Maggie.
We wouldn't be
Right?
nice humans, would we?
No. So it's a very gradual thing, and it's a full-time job for today's parents. My heart goes out to you. I was lucky. I can't imagine what would have happened if my 4 boys with gaming in one house.
Oh, wild.
Maggie Dent, she's about to take your calls. If you've got a parenting issue that you want to give us a call about, 13 24 10. She's got a brand new podcast out, The Good Enough Dad, which is available now. But Fashar's given us a call from Croydon Park. What is your question, Fashar?
Hi there. Look, I've got a 13-year-old boy, and he's quite an introvert. He's going into high school, and I'm just concerned about how can I get him to be more assertive? He, he's quite an introvert, and going into high school, I'm worried because has such a kind nature, and he's not that confident.
Oh, look, I think you need to just be lucky that he isn't the opposite, because the chest banging, our loud boys out there are the ones most likely to get into most trouble. So just explain that to him, that your temperament is different to others, and you've got to work out where are a couple of other introverted kind of friends or mates that you can make as you go into high school, that he will gradually build in his own capacity. And I think just keep on encouraging him to be him. But also, what are the sorts of things you can help him? 13, so sometimes the brain does a bit of pruning and his organisation skills and forgetfulness can get really worse. So I would be building his capacity to help him be organised. On a Sunday night, get organised. Remember to get your backpack off the bus. There's going to be those sorts of things. That will build his sense of coping and being capable, which lifts his sense of who he is and how he can deal with this world.
Well, thank you so much.
And hugging lots, and don't forget the random fart.
Exactly. But see, Maggie, you're a self-confessed introvert yourself, aren't you? You say you don't like doing this. You don't like going out in public.
I can do it for a day. I can do it for a day, but I can't do anything at night.
No.
Right?
Oh, I
can't
see
do
what
both.
you mean.
Sure.
And if I'm in a really large, this is smaller, I can do smaller really well, especially when we're talking about deep things. I can't do shallow talk.
Yeah.
Can't do it at all.
Yeah.
I think I like what you said just then, Maggie, to Fasha, where not being particularly confident and maybe keeping to yourself a little bit. That's not a bad thing.
Not a bad
I mean,
No, it's
unless
not.
you're feeling crippled yourself with fear around things, it's actually very endearing, and chances are you'll grow up into a lovely young man.
Oh, I tell you, in a classroom full of 14-year-old boys, I love the quieter, introverted boy, because he wasn't calling out.
Nikki and Allenby Heights. Nikki, welcome to the show. You're here with Maggie Dent. What's your question?
Hey, Maggie. Hey, guys. I have a question. So an 11-year-old daughter dealing with sort of pubescent, lots of hormonal changes, and I was wondering what strategies you might suggest just to help deal with the ups and downs of these changes, because I know they're going to be around for a while. And so,
Yeah, they are. And one of the trickiest windows is actually 10 to 12 is a significant window where our girls can really struggle with all of those things that are happening earlier than boys, because they go into puberty earlier. I would really recommend you get a really great kind of book to have with you. And I'm not the teen girl specialist, but I would love to recommend my friend Michelle Mitchell has a book about tweens, and she also has a book about girls and boys puberty, which when the kids can read it themselves and go, oh, okay, so this is, then you can have a conversation, and they can go and read it when they've got a problem with friendships or a problem with what's going on at school with the drama, or why their big feelings are getting so unpredictable. And and it gives you both something to go to that's predictable and really good. And I'm never writing a book for teen girls, never. So just get that one out there.
Good luck.
It's a dangerous world out there. I just wanted to ask you, Maggie. You were talking about the fact that you're out and about, and you have a lot of fathers and dads coming to your talks. Were you saying about 40% that dads actually want to, they want to step up and they want to be involved a bit more? Quite often, I know when we've spoken to you before, we talk about dads that live in the home and that are parenting along with the mother or their partner under the same roof. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening now who don't have that. I don't want to call it a luxury, because it's not always lovely living under the same roof, is it? But not everyone can parent or
in the same home.
So what is your advice to dads who feel on the outer, and maybe the relationship with their ex-partner is tricky?
Asking for a friend, are we?
Well,
Okay.
yeah.
No. Okay. So, and the number one thing, again, in that space, and it's a journey I've walked as well, is that the children need to be our priority, not our own dramas. And it's not always easy, particularly if a dad has come from a difficult kind of more patriarchal, dad is boss and my way is the highway and I'm right and you're wrong. That is difficult. I think one of the things that I noticed in the podcast is how dads have sort of said, when I realised that I can make a real difference in my kids' lives, both my sons and my daughters, it was a good kick up my bum. And I want to know how to, so you can only do what you know until you know more, you do better. So how do you do that? Because it won't come from you telling them that they can do it better. It's, I think, other dads talking to other dads, that's definitely happening. We've had some messages from the podcast saying one dad contacted us and said, I was a bit iffy about you, a woman, talking to men. And then I binged all of them and I came back and said, so I apologise for that. But I want to say that just from having listened to them, I'm a better man and I'm a better father. And, you brought up stuff that I didn't have, as he quoted, the balls to actually look at. So sometimes it is the good podcasts and it is listening to some of these, things that are out there, because not all of them read a book. But the other one that came up a lot is how many of the dads I spoke to are actually going to work on those stories in their head and to look at, how do I heal myself? So they're going into therapy, they're getting some support. And I think that's the biggest shift. We need to make that okay, because self-seeking behaviour
it's really tricky. I think even for people who are open to therapy and asking for help, it can be a difficult path.
And you've got to have the money for it.
Yeah.
And we're always learning, Maggie.
Oh, constantly.
We are always learning.
Thank you, you little introvert, for coming in, Maggie. We appreciate it. You can. The Good Enough Dad is available now wherever you get your good podcasts from. But Maggie, we love you to death. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, guys. So good to be here.
Fits in Whipper with Kate Ritchie is a Nova podcast. For more great shows like this, download the Nova Player via the App Store or Google Play.
The Nova Player.